Welcome back to the Riverside Church Podcast, where our mission is to equip you to live out the gospel. Today, we're really excited to have a special guest with us who we are going to interview. And it is a joy to have on the podcast with us today Mr. Mike Lindell, or Howie McKinney.
Yes.
Which is it?
The latter.
Could you please state your name for the record?
Oh, my whole name, my formal name, or
Your whole formal name.
You know, look good on the wedding invitations. Howard Ashworth McKinney III.
How do we know that you are truly Howard Ashworth McKinney III?
Well, I do have a birth certificate, unlike some people who run for political office don't always have.
That sounds very conspiracy-minded. I'm just saying. Do you have said birth certificate with you?
I do not.
So you're just expecting us to take your word for it?
Absolutely.
That you are who you say you are?
Yes.
Well, let me ask you a couple identifying questions. Do you believe that the 2020 election was stolen?
Do I believe the 2020 election was stolen? I refuse to.
I'm going to take a non-answer as an answer.
I refuse to answer that.
Are you currently being sued by Dominion Voting Systems?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, little suspect. Do you have a cross necklace that you wear prominently often?
I do not.
I don't know, Seth.
I don't even own a cross necklace.
Okay, well, I'm going to take your word for it that you are Howie McKinney. The question is, are you also Mike Lindell? Can you just state for us whether or not you... Let me ask you a question.
Okay.
Do you like pillows?
Well, I sleep on a pillow. Actually, I sleep with two pillows.
Have you ever given a pillow as a gift?
No.
Did you bring pillows with you today?
I did not. I'm all out of supply.
I don't know that you're my friend anymore.
I only have my two pillows. I only have two.
Okay. Well, the verdict's still out. We'll do a little more investigating. Maybe next time we'll try to introduce some more.
I will say, sometimes I have this recurring dream. It's kind of it's kind of scary, where it seems like I'm this narcissist guy that names a product after myself. And when I wake up, I'm squeezing my pillow really tight.
Okay. Are you very wealthy?
No.
Okay. All right.
No.
Well, we'll see. Okay. Well, we're going to move on to the true conspiracy for today. And this one is, I thought last week was probably the most important conspiracy that we were going to tackle, but this one might be the biggest. Howie, we have been deceived, and dear listeners, we have been deceived by a massive worldwide conspiracy.
Okay.
This conspiracy involves collusion by every major government. It includes conspiracy and cover-up by NASA, private space companies, computer technology companies, multimedia companies, Hollywood, and beyond. And I should add scientists all around the world. The conspiracy is that the Earth is a globe. The truth is that the Earth is flat.
Flat?
The Earth is flat.
Okay.
Now, why such a deception? Why would the world try to convince us that the Earth is a globe? Well, it depends on who you ask. There are multiple theories. Religious flat earthers would say that there's a conspiracy to undermine the Bible, which clearly teaches that the Earth is flat. Non-religious conspiracy people would say that it's a cover-up to cover up what's really happening in Antarctica. Or, truthfully, not in Antarctica, but at the ice wall that surrounds the flat Earth. Specifically, what is beyond the ice wall?
An ice wall.
Ice wall. An ice wall specifically that is upwards of 100 miles high.
Oh.
All around, surrounding the whole flat disk, much like this table. The Earth is flat, much like this table is flat. It is round, but not globular, if that's a word.
Okay.
And everything that we know is contained on that flat Earth. But surrounding this table of a flat Earth is a 100-mile high ice wall. Now, some say that there's nothing beyond that ice wall. Others say that there are other lands beyond that ice wall. But the truth is, the government will not allow anyone into Antarctica to find out the truth. If you try to go to Antarctica, you could be shot. You will be certainly turned away. You could be kidnapped by the government. There are lots of, things that can happen if you go to Antarctica. So, let's describe a little bit more of what the flat Earth is, and then we'll decide whether it's true or whether the conspiracy of a globe Earth is really true. So in a flat Earth model, well, first of all, let's describe a globe. Everybody, hopefully, if you've been in school, you had a globe. You got to spin it, which is lots of fun. And at the top of the globe is the North Pole. And at the bottom of the pole, we also call the North Pole the Arctic Circle. At the bottom of the globe is the South Pole, which is where Antarctica is. And then all around the rest of the globe, of course, is everything that we see now. Well, in the flat Earth model, the Earth is flat, and in the very center of the flat Earth is the Arctic Circle, the North Pole. Surrounding the Arctic Circle are all the land masses that we know of as the continents.
Okay.
And then past the land masses is the oceans, and then they end and are, of course, held in place by the ice wall that surrounds it all. And so that is kind of the flat Earth, how it's laid out. And one of the reasons why the flurfers, as they're called, the flat earthers, in case you didn't know that word, so you're either a flurfer or you're a glober. If you're a flurfer, you try to point out evidence. For example, the fact that when you look at the horizon, like if you go to the beach and you look at the horizon doesn't seem to bend the way that a globe Earth would. It seems flat. If you hold a ruler up to the horizon, you're not going to see the bend that you would see. Flurfers say that part of the government conspiracy is there is no International Space Station, that is a concoction of the government in cahoots with Hollywood in order to push the agenda, and that all of the pictures that we see from the space station, including, by the way, the 24-hour live feed that's on the space station, is actually all being filmed in a movie lot somewhere with green screens, and every picture that you see of the Earth is CGI.
Oh.
So, what do you think, Howie? Have I convinced you that the Earth is flat, or should we try to debunk it?
Well, I'm struggling with the whole flat thing, and like the ocean tides. How do they explain?
Oh, well,
that?
see, okay, so tides are kind of hard to explain if you're a flat earther.
Oh.
Especially because if you're a flat earther, the sun is not millions of miles away. The sun is only a couple thousand miles away, maybe a few thousand miles. And the sun is much smaller the sun typically in a flat earth view is not round. It's a manufactured light, manufactured by God or whoever the flat earthers may say. The sun and the moon are the same size, and they simply rotate around this flat earth, and that's why we get sunrise and sunset and moonrise and moonset and all those things.
So we have a mobile flying over us with lights.
Basically, yes. So we're
okay.
like babies in our bassinet, and the powers that be have, just turned the dial and turned the little mobile on, and it moves around. So, interestingly enough, there is a what's the word? I can't think of the word. There's a journey being taken, a expedition. There we go. That is going to Antarctica in December. So, part of the conspiracy, I got to break the conspiracy thing, okay? I'm sorry, I'm trying to be serious about this, but it's
very hard.
Just a crazy conspiracy, and it's so easy to debunk. It's kind of pathetic. But one of the things that almost every flat earther says is the way that you could prove that the earth is flat is, so in Antarctica, in the Antarctic summer, which is in June, in the globe earth model, the sun does not set for several weeks because of the way that the earth tilts and the rotation and all that stuff.
Right.
In a flat earth model, it's always moving, and so there will never be a time when you have 24 hours of daylight in the ice wall, because the ice wall is not one, southern location. It surrounds the whole flat earth, whereas you can have in their model 24 hours of sunlight in the Arctic Circle because it's in the center. But so one of the things almost all major flat earthers say is their model of a flat earth can be debunked if the government would allow them to go to Antarctica and observe the Antarctic summer, the South Pole summer. And if they could observe that the sun does not set for 24 straight hours, then they would all believe that the earth is a globe. However, they all say that the government will not let them go there. Here's the problem with that. There are dozens of companies out there that take expeditions to Antarctica every year.
Right.
And if you pay enough money, you can go visit Antarctica. So there is a guy who is kind of a leading guy in this whole movement, and he put together an expedition for this December, and he is offering to pay the full price, room and board and food and everything, for one of the leading flat earth guys, and he has been told no by almost all of them. Because the thing about conspiracies is conspiracies don't like to be debunked. Conspiracy theorists tend to always continually move the goalpost. And so when you call them out, then they'll just change what they think. And so that's kind of what's happening here is, well, now that they've all said, well, if I could go to Antarctica, then I could prove that the earth is flat. Now he's offering them, and they don't want to go. But anyway, he's going to go. They're going to try to take some flat earthers and some globers, and they're going to all get together, and they're going to literally watch the sun for 24 straight hours and see if it sets. So in December, we could see the end of the craziness that is the flat earth theory, although I don't think it's going to go away that fast. But so the question really is, and by the way, I'm not going to try to debunk the specifics of the flat earth theory, curvature, the spin of the earth. That's, one of the flat earth things is that if the earth is spinning at 1,000 miles an hour, how come we haven't all flown off the earth? Well, have you ever been on an airplane traveling 600 miles an hour? If you're on an airplane traveling 600 miles an hour and you jump up in the air while you're in that airplane traveling 600 miles an hour, guess what's not going to happen? You're not going to go flying to the back of the plane because the plane's leaving you behind. When you are in motion, you don't feel the motion, and you can. It's just like if I go outside and I jump up in the air, I'm not going to land 6 feet behind me. I'm going to land back where I'm going because I'm still going to be moving forward. They actually did an experiment a while back where they put some. I said I wasn't going to debunk this, but I'll debunk this part. They put a couple guys on the top wing of a what do they call them, a biplane that has like the two levels of wings or whatever. They put guys on the top level, and while the plane was taxiing down the runway to take off, they had put a net across it, and they were playing tennis across the plane to show motion. When you are in motion, you stay in motion. The only thing that would stop you from being in that ball, like if they're hitting that ball back and forth on the plane, if that ball stays in the air for long enough, it will begin to lose motion and it will begin to move back. But it's not going to happen right off the bat. So anyway, so that's kind of that. But, gravity is another aspect of it. But I'm not really concerned with trying to debunk all that here tonight. What I want to do is talk about two things when it comes to flat Earth and the globe. And the one is, has a flat Earth been the view of the church? Because that's one of the allegations. Mm-hmm. And there, unfortunately, are a large number of Christians who have fallen into the rabbit hole of believing that the earth is flat. And one of the reasons that they've believed it is because these, TikTokers or podcasters who are into the flat earth thing have been using the Bible to claim that the earth is flat. And so that's what I want to look at tonight is, what does the Bible say? And secondly, what's been the view of the church? Has the church taught that the earth is flat? Because that's one of the I guess, conspiracy components. In fact, if Howie and I were talking about this earlier, actually before the podcast, if you went to school when I was a kid growing up, one of the things we heard, Howie, you share it, is that Columbus
sailed to prove that the earth was flat. They were afraid that he would fall off and drop off and never be seen again.
Yeah.
I was taught that in the 70s.
Yeah. So the truth of the matter is Columbus never, ever believed. It's an old wives' tale. There's no documentation that Columbus ever believed that the earth was flat, or that the prevailing view in the 13 and 1400s when Columbus lived, or really 1400s when Columbus lived, and early 1500s, but there's no evidence that the prevailing view at the time was that the earth was flat. The question was, what was the fastest way to get to Asia? Was the fastest way to sail around, or to sail across, to sail like around Africa, or to sail across the ocean? And Columbus set out to prove that it was actually quicker to get there because going around Earth would get him to Asia quicker. What they did not realize, and what they didn't know at the time, was that the earth was a lot bigger than they thought it was, and there was a whole other continent. When Columbus landed, he actually didn't land in America. He landed on an island off of the coast of the Americas. He actually thought he was landing in Asia, specifically India, which is why they called the Native Americans that they met Indians. So it's a moniker that stuck, but it actually is not accurate when we talk about Native Americans as Indians. So anyway, all right. So what is the church's view? That's the question, because I know one of the things I heard a lot growing up is that the church always taught that the earth was flat. At least in the Middle Ages. That was the big thing, right? Well, the truth is, the church, and listen, because this is really important, the church has never, ever in its history held the view that the earth was flat. Now, there were some church teachers that did over the, there was a church teacher in the 3rd century who began teaching that the earth was flat, in part because he was rejecting the Greek model for the universe.
Okay.
And the church actually considered him a heretic because he was teaching a view that was contrary to what the church had believed. He became really popular later on when there were some in the church who were teaching this flat earth concept. But there were some teachers that did, but they were often rebuked by the church. Now, it is true that the church did teach an earth-centric model of the universe in which they believed that the earth was the center of the universe, and everything else, the sun, the moon, the stars, all the planets revolved around the earth. They did teach that. They did, do some pretty bad things in response to scientists who were observing the universe and saying, hey, the earth is not the center of the universe. It appears at least that our sun is the center of our solar system and we revolve around that. And so the church did react harshly to that and then had to recant its own view later on because the church was not teaching something that the Bible had taught. The church was teaching something that tradition had taught. And so it wasn't just a church teaching, it was really a view that a lot of people had at that time. But we know science has proven is not true, and the Bible doesn't back it up. But the church has never held a view that the earth was flat. So the idea of the central aspect of the earth and flat earth are two different things, although flat earthers tend to put them both together. In fact, most flat earthers today would say that the earth is the center. Maybe not most. I'd probably say most. Most would probably say that the earth is the center of the universe today, those who teach a flat earth concept. Interestingly enough, a globe earth has been the prevailing thought in all the world since about 500 BC. It was in 500 BC that the Greeks first observed the universe, really began to observe. It took a look at, all the observable evidence and all the mathematics and said that indicates that the earth is a globe. Mm-hmm. And so if you want to talk about what's new and what's old, a globe model for the earth is old. It's not new. And so a flat earth model is actually a new concept, not an old concept. And talking about Columbus, why Columbus sailed, that was an old wives' tale.
Right.
When do you think the flat earth view became popular?
Oh, goodness. I got to be honest, I had never really heard about it until about 10 years ago.
Okay. You're right on. 2013 is when the first, I don't know if TikTok was a thing in 2013, but the early, I guess YouTube videos, when YouTube videos were getting popular and people were watching YouTubers, that's when the flat earth thing started being pushed. Okay. But it got really popular about 2016 or 17. And then during COVID, it went crazy. So much to the point. In fact, interestingly enough, if you look back and you kind of look at the stuff, what was happening around 2016 and 17 is the flat earth thing was getting popular because a lot of people thought it was funny.
Oh, yeah.
And so they were making fun of it. And so there were lots of Facebook pages that were popping up that were flat earth Facebook pages, but they were intended to be, what's the word, Seth? Satirical. Yeah, they were. Thank you. I need all the help I can get. They were meant to be satire. But if you ever go down the rabbit hole and you look at these Facebook pages that some of them are clearly intended to be satirical, the people who populate those pages don't see those things as satire.
No.
They buy it hook, line, and sinker. Like, for example, I was browsing Facebook, and since I'm talking about conspiracies, the the scary people at Facebook who listen to everything you talk about and do those algorithms.
Yes.
When I open up Facebook to scroll through Facebook tonight, everything is going to be about flat Earth or conspiracies. Well, because I've been doing a lot of that researching here lately, last night there was a picture, clearly an AI picture that was posted, and it said, Goliath's tomb finally found.
Oh, wow.
And so it's two pictures. One is a picture of a guy dressed in like Philistine attire, laying in a grave, and they just uncovered him. But literally, number one, he has his head, which if you know the story of David and Goliath lost his head in that battle. But he's laying there, has his head and all of his hair and his skin. It looks like he died like 5 minutes ago. And they just unearthed him. And then there was a second picture that looked like somebody had put in Indiana Jones and Giant or something in AI, and it rendered it like a picture of a giant skeleton. But the picture of Goliath, they had people standing next to him, and Goliath was like 30 feet tall in the grave. So I love to scroll through the comments, and I'm not exaggerating. 75% of the comments were not about the fact that the picture is fake. It's how come he doesn't have an indentation in his head since David hit him with a stone. And then a few people said they must have put his head back on him before they laid him in the grave. I was thinking, are you people really that crazy that you look at that and you just buy it hook, line, and sinker? And so, but anyway, so that's kind of what happened. I'm really getting somewhere with that. In 2016, 17, and especially during COVID, when people are sitting at home and they're watching all these things, and all these guys are putting out all these videos, and it gained traction so that now estimates are saying that there are millions of people just in the United States who bought into this, or at least think that the government's trying to hide something about the shape of the earth.
Well, yeah, because the government made COVID happen.
Yeah, I mean, we love
you buy into all this stuff, and then it's like all this stuff seems real and seems plausible. If this is true, then all these other things have to be true as well.
Oh, I'm glad you said that, because that would be a great study to undertake, is of people that believe one conspiracy, how many of those people who believe one conspiracy believe multiple conspiracies? And sometimes conspiracies that even contradict each other.
Right.
Because I think that's true. When you get conspiracy-minded, you'll believe anything. So I asked when the flat Earth thing really got started, and 2013 is when it at least starting to go viral.
Right.
But the flat Earth concept dates back. Really, the new flat Earth concept dates back to about 1830. There was a man in England. I can't remember his name. It seems like his last name was Wallace or something like that. He became disenchanted with the globe stuff he was hearing, Greek philosophy, whatever. I can't remember what all his reasons were, but he found a river that had a fairly flat river that was pretty long and straight, and you could see a long ways. And he did a test to try to prove the curvature of the Earth, because the Earth drops so much, in the curve for every. I'm going to get it wrong if I tried to say it, and his calculations, according to his calculations, the Earth was flat. Well, they redid his test like a year or two later and realized he got his math wrong, and he was wrong. But anyway, from that, he wrote a book. Did you look it up, Seth? William Carpenter. He wrote a book called The Zenetic something, or the subheading of the book, subtitle is The Earth is Flat. And so he wrote that book. And so a lot of flat earthers today, even if they don't know it, trace their opinions about why the Earth is flat back to what he wrote at the time. And so anyway, so it's new, it's not old, and it's really not. In fact, this guy was like a New Ager kind of in his philosophy. And it's interesting because, Seth and I talked about this whole thing with aliens and alien conspiracies and the tie-in that you see to a lot of demonic activity or occult activity.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of the same thing here that you're seeing is actually its root is in some stuff that's very not Christian at all.
Right.
But then some Christians have picked it up. Okay, so that's kind of the church idea. What about the Bible? Does the Bible teach that the earth is flat? What do you think, Howie?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, I know there are some verses like this. It talks about the circle of the earth.
Mm-hmm.
So no, I don't think it teaches a flat earth.
Yeah, the Bible says a lot of things. The Bible talks about God stretching out the heavens,
Right.
which is certainly not what the flat earth model would say, that the earth is covered with a dome.
Mm-hmm.
Because in a flat earth model, the stars are not way out there. The stars are close as well. The other thing is, if you're just you go to Walmart and buy a telescope, you can observe Mars.
Right.
And one of the things you're going to see is that Mars is a sphere. Every planet is a sphere. So and if you can observe the moon, it's clear that the moon is a sphere and not
Yes.
Whatever they would try to claim that it is. Why would the Earth be different than all of the other planets? If you're talking about it from a spiritual standpoint, why would God create a flat Earth and then every other planet make them round?
Right.
It doesn't make sense because God's a God of consistency. He does things the same way. So I think what I would say when it comes to from a Bible perspective is that the Bible authors were seldom interested in making scientific statements.
Correct.
Now, that doesn't mean that the Bible contradicts science or the Bible says nothing about science or that the Bible opposes science. I think that actually the opposite is true. I think science, when we look at it, constantly affirms the Bible, and I think the Bible affirms science because they're both, God is the one who made the laws of the universe, and so you don't separate the two. But the Bible is much less interested in making scientific statements than it is in making theological statements.
Mm-hmm.
The Bible is concerned with the inner man, the inner workings, or really the purposes of God for us, specifically us. I mean, the Bible is man-centric, and I don't mean that we are the center. What I mean is God has put us in the center of His creation, with God as the head. But there are some verses in the Bible, like Revelation chapter 7, verse 1, that talks about the four corners of the earth, that God placed angels in the four corners of the earth. Well, if you're reading just that statement, you're taking it literally, then the earth is neither a globe nor a flat disc. The earth is square.
Right.
If you read Psalm 75:3 or Deuteronomy 13:7, I think Psalm 75:3 talks about that God holds up the earth. The pillars of the earth stand firm. And so if you're reading that literally, then we have a flat earth that's held up by pillars like a building would have. Deuteronomy 13:7, and there are other passages. Often in Scripture you see the term "to the ends of the earth."
Right.
And so, a flat earther would say, see, that means that the earth has an end. It's not a globe. But these statements are not meant to be scientific statements. They're meant to be theological statements. They're what are called idiomatic phrases.
Sure.
It is God trying to express something that He means. It's kind of like me if I walk in Seth's office and I have an idea for how Seth should paint a picture. Now that would be kind of stupid for me to walk in Seth's office and tell Seth how to paint a picture,
Right.
because Seth is the artist and I'm not. But let's say Seth is working on something, and I say, Seth, I don't really like what you're doing. And Seth said, let's say Seth's working on the computer. He's typing out the bulletin or something, and I don't like how he's doing it. And I say, Seth, I don't like how that's going. I think you need to do it over. And Seth said to me, well, fine, I'll just go back to the drawing board. Does that mean Seth is literally going to put a board up and hand draw the bulletin again? No. What going back to the drawing board means what?
It means you're going to start over.
I'm just going to start over.
Yeah.
And so these idiomatic phrases, that's what they mean. They don't mean literally what they're saying. For example, when Deuteronomy 13:7 says to the ends of the earth, it simply means that God's love doesn't end.
Right.
That he's gonna that his love extends, his grace extends, whatever the context may be in whatever passage you're looking at it at, that his grace extends to the ends of the earth, to wherever there are people.
Right.
That's where God's love is going to go. That's what it almost always means, people, not literally the planet.
Right.
The pillars that are going to stand firm, all that means is that, bad things might happen, let's say earthquakes may happen or volcanoes may erupt. The wind may come, the rain may come, you may have dry spells, but God is not going to let the earth be destroyed. That's what it means. God simply is sustaining it all. The angels in Revelation 7:1 that stand at the four corners of the earth, all that simply means is that the whole earth is going to be covered. Whatever God is going to do, it's going to encompass the whole earth.
Yeah.
And so, it's easier to say four corners than it would be to say around the whole globular earth and to eternity, God is going to do this. And so we get these idiomatic statements. So the Bible doesn't, what I would say is the Bible doesn't affirm or deny a globe earth because the Bible is not concerned with whether the earth is a globe. And so, God has given us intellect and abilities to observe the world around us, and we can observe the world around us and make observations, and through those observations come to conclusions. And God has designed us to be able to do that. And so we can observe what is around us with unbiased eyes and come to these conclusions. And one is that the earth is not flat. There are a million problems with a flat earth. And do we understand everything about how the earth works? I mean, who really can explain gravity?
Right.
Except for the fact that it seems you have to have a center mass and rotation in order to have gravity. And if you don't have that center mass and rotation, then you don't seem to have gravity. And in a flat earth, you don't have that. And so the funny thing is, one flat earth way of explaining gravity is they say that the earth is perpetually, forever moving upwards.
Oh.
For eternity. Since God created the flat earth has been moving upwards, and that's why when you jump up, you're always going to jump back down. But it's not because you fell down, it's because the earth came up to meet you.
Yeah, the earth is rising up to meet us.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so it just does, it's like a forever elevator that's plunging upwards at, 1,000 miles an hour, whatever. And so, anyway.
Brian, one thing that I like as far as talking about explaining maybe a globe, I love the fact that God is very specific, and he says he cast our sins as far as the east is from the west, because he said, if he said north, if it's a globe, we go north, and then we start going south again. Mm-hmm. But if we're going west, we're perpetually going west. Mm-hmm. If we're going east, the same thing. So as far as the east is from the west, I just love that picture.
Yeah, if you're talking about what kind of picture does that paint of the world, even though it's not meant to be a scientific statement, it has scientific implications to it, and that is that clearly is talking about something that never ends, because the east never ends, the west never ends.
Right.
In a globular earth, anyway.
Correct.
Oh, good. Well, yes, sir.
I'm curious if you could talk a little bit. You might have to repeat the question too. Can you indulge these types of conspiracies, or
So Seth asks, can you indulge these type of conspiracies or should you not? So I think,
Even out of a fascination standpoint.
yeah, so I think there are two ways to look at it. So if I encounter someone who's just argumentative, they're not interested in hearing what I have to say. Because I can sit and listen to anybody. I can listen to anybody's opinion, whether I agree with them or not. If they're willing to listen to what I have to say, and I'm willing to give them the space to speak as well, then for me, that's okay. But if they're just going to be argumentative and you can tell that all they are doing is looking for the next thing that they're going to say, and all they want to do is prove you wrong and prove that they are right, then there's a point where you shake the dust off your feet and you recognize that it's not going to do you any good to get there. On the other side of it, there are a lot of people who are caught up in this conspiracy, and it is simply because someone sounds good and they've naively or out of ignorance. And I don't mean ignorance. Sometimes we give the word ignorance, this negative connotation. And the word ignorant in and of itself is not a negative word. It just means you don't know. For example, Paul says in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, he tells the Thessalonians that he doesn't want them to be ignorant about the coming of Jesus.
Right.
And so, or ignorant about those who've fallen asleep, those who've died. And so it's not that he's saying, I don't want you to be stupid about it. I don't want you to be uninformed. Some translations will say uninformed. And so some people have fallen kind of down this rabbit hole because they've listened to somebody who sounds good, and out of ignorance, not knowing or being uninformed is another good way to put it, they have kind of fallen into that belief. And so for me, that's why I wanted to do this podcast, because I want to help those people who are uninformed to be more informed. And so what I would say is, it is not a denial of Scripture to say that the earth is a globe, because that is not a stance that the church has held historically, and it's not a stance that the Bible is trying to push to us. And so those who are telling you that are either they're uninformed or ignorant, or they simply are lying and not telling you the truth. And so I would welcome a conversation with someone, and I wouldn't laugh at them. I know we've kind of made fun of it a little bit, and I don't mean that.
Right.
I make fun of the conspiracy, not the people who believe it. I would certainly love to sit down with somebody who is confused because of some TikTok videos that they've watched, things that they've heard, things that sound real good. Like I saw a flat earther talking about lines of longitude and latitude, and what he said sounded really good until somebody in the know came right behind and debunked what he said and said, this is why he's got it wrong. And so, sitting down with somebody who's a little bit in the know, who has even more knowledge than me, and can give some insight into why these things are not something valid and worth following. So, I wouldn't dismiss somebody out of hand. I would say, who knows, maybe there's some people in our own church who've kind of fallen is not a good word, who've followed, some of these teachings and are confused and want to know the truth. And so what I would say is, you need to make sure you're looking at both sides of the issue. I don't like everything he says. Sometimes I think he's a little harsh, but there's a guy named Justin Peters who put out a really good, it's about an hour and a half long video. He's actually put out a couple debunking the flat earth theory. He's actually the video I watched. He interviewed the guy who's taking the expedition to Antarctica later this year. And so he put out a really good video. Hugh Ross has put out some really good stuff. Answers in Genesis put out some really good stuff on flat Earth versus globe Earth. And, listen to some of those guys. There's another guy I would recommend he's a scientist and certainly not a Christian by any stretch. I would recommend him and tell you his name, but he seems to think profanity is as important as the other words he uses. But if it wasn't for that, I would recommend him because he puts out really good stuff. But anyway, I would certainly go to those guys that I mentioned. Howie, anything else we want to talk about today?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. All right. Well, it's been good to have Dave Lindell with us today, or Mike Lindell. Mike Lindell with us today. Although we did not get our pillows, so I'm a little bit upset about that. But maybe next time.
That alone should prove that I'm not, the guy.
I don't know. I mean, I know that the company has been under stress because of all the lawsuits, and a lot of advertisers have dropped you, so maybe you should have the money to bring us pillows. I don't know.
Moving the goalpost there, Brian.
Yeah.
Moving the goalpost. Yeah, that's good, Seth.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us today. Hope that this has been somewhat profitable for you. If you are a flurfer, I would just encourage you to do a little bit of research and certainly don't stake your claim in a flat earth on the Bible, because the Bible is not out to teach us that the earth is flat. See ya.